Good morning. It's Wednesday, May the 6th, and I'm here with Tuesday, May the 5th's Bell Ringer Answer. Your Bell Ringer Answer dealt with agriculture and more specifically dealt with the third agricultural revolution, talking about genetically modified organisms, GMOs. All right, so please remember that GMOs are something that has developed in agriculture since the 1970s, that they are part of more developed countries, the countries that have a more advanced infrastructure for economics. So in other words, they have farmers that can afford to buy seeds. We're not talking about farmers anymore who save seeds from the previous year's harvest. We're talking about farmers who go to the seed supply store every year and they buy the seeds that they are going to plant. This is how modern monocropping, growing a single crop, commercial agriculture is done. Okay, so you ask, what are some of the pros and cons of genetically modified organisms? And I've kind of primed the pump for you and told you that, first off, the pros: feed more people. That's the goal. Of course, GMOs feed more people by having crops that are higher yield. So one of the ways they're higher yield is perhaps they're genetically modified, so they produce more fruit, grains per plant. IR36, for example, grows so much rice, so many rice grains per plant, 36 times the original amount from hundreds of years ago, that the plant itself would actually snap off under the weight of the larger head with all of the rice grains. So it's been genetically modified to be a beefier stock to be able to hold up. Or modern day corn in the United States, which has 3 or 4 ears of corn per plant versus, say, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was a single ear per plant. So the yield is higher. So feed more people. Some of the other ways they feed more people is that they're resistant to diseases. Now, here's a pro. Rather than using pesticides, which can kill pollinators like honeybees by accident as an unintended consequence, genetically modified crops might be naturally, in quotes, resistant, or they may have immunities such as naturally occurring enzymes from a different plant that they now possess. Bell pepper enzymes that are now genetically modified to be in corn plants, making corn weevils less likely to eat the actual corn and diminish the yield. Or plants could be genetically modified to be resistant to drought, resistant to frost, so resistant to high amounts of heat. All of those genetic modifications, changes in their DNA, could make the crop more successful. We could also be taking we could genetically modify a plant that isn't really food. So feeding more people is a wonderful goal, but what if we genetically modify a cotton plant? That's not feeding more people, but that is decreasing the cost for the industry. So you increase the supply of cotton. If the demand for cotton remains unchanged, then the supply of cotton would fall. Or this allows more cotton to be produced by the farmer. If demand continues to rise, then the farmer would make more money, making the farmer more profitable. Unfortunately, a lot of these genetically modified organisms, though, actually work against the farmer because they're increasing the supply and the demand isn't increasing at the same rate, and as a result, the price of the product is falling, which then puts us over in the con side, that the GMOs maybe increase the supply of the product faster than demand increases, and thus it pushes down the price, forcing the farmer to either sell for a lower price or raise more of the product just to get the same amount of revenue, not price, revenue for themselves. All right, some other cons for GMOs. They can be bad for the environment. If it is a genetically modified organism, it is not, in fact, what Mother Nature intended to be there. And so what happens if that plant cross-pollinates with a native plant? What happens if that plant now is a super plant that grows super tall and has a super high yield, and so as a result it drinks twice as much water, uses twice as many nutrients? So it depletes the soil much more rapidly. What if it is resistant to a certain pest, and the pest is part of the natural ecosystem and food web, and as a result, the pest doesn't survive, and the things that eat the pest don't survive either. So, okay, and then why do European governments regulate GMOs at a much higher and stricter level than we do in the United States? EU countries have a common agricultural policy. Not all European Union countries have the same level of economic development, making GMOs more affordable in some EU countries than others. So they kind of level the playing field by saying no genetically modified products. They also have universal health care, and there are some unusual health concerns about GMOs, not necessarily fully proven, but concerns. And the healthcare system simply said, no, we're not going to support the use of GMOs. They also have a more advanced environmental policy in some areas, and some of the unanswered questions about whether or not GMOs are good or bad for the environment have caused them to be reluctant. European Union countries started off with the whole, if you are what you eat and you're eating frankenfood, what happens to you kind of question. So they do not allow them. Not all countries in the world use the same standard. Oh, and why would a less developed country not use GMOs? Number one reason, can't afford them. Okay, farmers can't afford them. Number two reason, farmers don't necessarily have the techniques in place to be able to use them. GMO, genetically modified corn, only makes sense if you're going to plant like 1,000 acres of it. If you've got a 40-acre field and you're a subsistence farmer, the GMO probably isn't something that's going to really help you. Okay, now, if you have any other questions about those, please email me and ask. There's one other change for today. Today I'm going to start adding more materials to the AP exam preparation folder, the white folder that you all have access to. It already has some things there, but I'm going to start adding some information there. One of the things I really want you to check out is the demo for the AP exam. It's a walkthrough on what it's going to be like to take the AP exam, how to log in, what the time is going to be like, all of that sort of stuff. I strongly encourage you to go and do that sometime in the next day or two. So please get in the habit daily of checking that AP exam white folder, just so that you are fully aware of whatever materials are out there. Oh, and one last thing. I'm also going to start adding a completely optional set of lessons for you. They are, the College Board is posting AP exam lessons. They're about an hour long. And they're via YouTube. They're there for you if you would like to use them. You're not required to. You're not turning anything in. But for some of you who want the extra practice, they're there. All right, so have a good Wednesday. Stay safe.